Today I am showing off the damage that all of the axes do in the axe tree when you have them at different spec levels. Let's get started. So at complete maximum spec, this is what you can expect, alright? So, the auto attack, which is just when you do an open swing on the target, does 160 damage. The bleed stacks at 1 stack does 16 damage. At 2 stacks does 33 damage. And at 3 stacks it does 50 damage times 6 ticks. Now you can always refresh it so you can keep it at 50 bleed damage per tick. This is very important because it will scale down with lower spec. I'm testing out the Q2 ability. Now what do I mean by like Q2, W5? What do these things mean on the screen? Let me explain real quick, okay? You can see here we have a weapon, we have our Q slot, and this is Q1, Q2, which is currently selected in Q3. And we have W, you have W1, W2, W3, W4, and W5. Alright, so that is what that means, alright? Now, because W5 is also a damage buff increase, I decided to just show how much your E does when it is fully stacked up with the W. And the cool thing is it snapshots. So what that means is that as long as you have your damage increase from your W spell active, as long as you cast your E spell before it runs out, your entire E will receive that damage increase, even if it runs out in the middle of you spinning. Awesome, isn't it? Now, if you bump the spec down to where Great Axe is at 120 and the rest are at 100, then these are the damage numbers. You can see here, it's not even worth investing into the other axes if you want more damage, because you're getting 3 auto attack damage. 3. Wow. That's like, it's so minor, it's so pointless. Even your buffed ease spell, you're only getting 34 more total damage. Not damage per spin, total damage. So going from 720 to 840, not worth it at all. Don't bother, do not bother, not one bit. Then when you bump it down to 100 spec in Great Axe and the rest is 50, that's kind of like a budget thing. This is the damage that you can expect here. You can go ahead and pause the video. I didn't do the math to see how much weaker it is. So if you want, rewind the video, check it out, and then do the math if you're really concerned about it. Here's the results for 100 spec, and everything else is at 1. So you can see that just using the budget mode to bump everything up to 50, I don't think it's worth it either. I mean, your auto attack doesn't get much, your bleeds don't really get any much higher, your Q2, W5, pitiful amounts of an increase. You're gaining almost no benefit. Now, with a buffed Whirlwind, you almost breach 100 more additional damage. However, is it worth all that spec? If you're not going to use the other axes, I don't think it's worth it at all to bump it up beyond 100. And finally, comparing from 100 spec to 1 spec is the Great Axe at 1 spec. You can see it's a huge damage difference. On the E alone, you're looking at 200 to 300 more damage depending on if you are buffed. Your W5 dealing, well, far more damage from 1 to 100 spec as well. So very, very huge difference. Definitely recommend getting 100 spec in Great Axe if you want to use it. However, speccing up other axes to power up this weapon, not recommended. For the next tests, we will not be testing the bleed, the Q damage, or the W damage. We will be testing the W damage buffed, but let me explain why, okay? For one, the Great Axe is a standard weapon. To craft it, you only need wood and metal. The rest of the weapons, they have a little bit more item power. So look at this, Hand of Core, which is the Great Axe, 1487 item power. If we look at the Halberd, same thing. If we look at the Hand Axe, or Battle Axe rather, same thing. But once you start looking at other weapons like Carrion Collar, 1512. Then you have the Infernal Sith, 1537. You have the Bear Paws, 1562, and then the Realm Breaker, 1587. Why is that? Let me explain real quick how that works and why, okay? So every weapon tree has 3 standard weapons, okay? They're usually on the rightmost side, usually, not always, sometimes they're on the left side. These have no scaling because they just require base items to craft. Then you have the rune item, which is the Carrion Collar. So to craft the Carrion Collar, you need what's called a Morgana Halberd Head, which is made from runes, okay? Then from there, you have the Souls Weapon, which is the Infernal Sith, or Scythe, however you want to pronounce it. Let me know in the comments how you pronounce it. And then you have the Bear Paws, which is made by relics. And then from there, you have the Avalonian weapon made by Avalonian Drops, which is the Realm Breaker. And that's how the power scales. And because of that, that just means that everything else beyond the first 3 standard weapons will deal slightly more damage. And I'm not going to bother to calculate such a small increase. It's just not worth the time. Alright, so with the Battle Axe, here is the E's damage, okay? It's 728 and then 320. You heal for 659. That's at 3 stacks. I'm not testing with no stacks. There's no reason people would throw their axes with no stacks or care about their damage if they're not stacking bleed. It's super easy to stack bleed. I'm not going to test it. You can test it if you want. Get on your personal island and attack the target dummies. Now, E with 10 stacks of your W5, which again is this spell right here, increases your damage. You can see, you won't be able to see the tooltip because I got stuff covering the screen, but it's 10 times 4% increased damage. So 40% increase of damage makes your E hit for 908 and then 400. However, you still heal for the same 659. You do not increase the amount you heal through your W stacks, alright? Now, let me also talk about the offhand. I'm using Moisac. I don't know how to say it. Musiac? I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but let me go over why we're using that for our test and not anything else, okay? I have thoroughly tested all offhands at maximum spec to see what would be the most ideal thing to use with the Battle Axe in a PvE group dungeon soloing situation, which is why I'm making this video, really, is to test damage for that. And the answer is the Moisac, because not only does it increase your damage that you deal, you also receive more healing. That healing cast bonus, that affects your E's heal. Alright? Now, the Celestial Censer does the same thing, but it makes you way less tanky. It makes you actually kind of squishy. It's not worth healing slightly more for that amount of downside, okay? The Crypt Candle, second choice, absolutely best second choice here. However, it does make you squishy, which makes it harder to solo group dungeon mobs in masses. Now, people might wonder, what's better, Taproot or Astral Aegis? And let me tell you right now, the Taproot lets you tank a few extra hits over the Aegis, okay? As far as letting a mob hit you goes, the Taproot will keep you alive very slightly longer. However, the Taproot does have that negative healing bonus, so your E won't heal you as much, which in the long run means it's worse off than the Aegis. The Aegis has, it does massively increase your mana, but we do have the Scholar's Cowl to counteract that anyway. So Astral Aegis is a completely fine, very nice, very good choice. It's absolutely fine to pick an Aegis if you want. However, your clear speed will be slower than the Moisac, and your healing won't be as much. The amount of healing that you're receiving from the Moisac heavily counteracts the tankiness that the Aegis gives you. Then you have stuff like Facebreaker. Facebreaker's all right. It's not bad. It's. I would prefer Facebreaker over Aegis because of the damage bonus that you receive. All right. Other than that, you have Torch and you have Mistcaller. In testing, these didn't really increase my healing as much over the Moisac, and they didn't really offer any defensives or offensives. So, and auto-attacking, not a big deal, because most of the time you're spent dodging attacks anyway. So that's why we went with the Moisac. Anyway, let's continue testing. Now from 1 to 100 spec, here are the numbers. You can see that the heal jumped up almost by a full 100, so that's pretty cool. That is about a 5% more heal for your max HP, maybe. Maybe not that much, but it's pretty significant. Then at 400 spec, here is the difference. You can see that it's almost non-noticeable at all. Even when buffed, it's like, what, 42 more damage? Whoop-de-doo. Well, 42 plus 18, so it's not even 100. Now, we have jumped a little bit from 400 spec to 840, and the reason is because the damage we were gaining at 700, 720, etc. was so insignificant it wasn't even worth talking about. But look at this. From 400 to 840, we only gained 93 more damage with our main E attack, 41 for the off attack, and only 51 more healing, that's it? That's like a few hits with roast beef active. It's absolute garbage. This weapon does not scale well with IP at all. Once you level this weapon to 100, don't even level the other axes if you don't plan to use them for things. It's not worth it at all. Even fully buffed with your E, with your W5 buff up, it's 160 more damage. It's not worth all of that combat fame credits to max out the entire axe tree. Absolutely not. If you've made it this far in the video, I do want to let you know there are 3 axes I'm not going to bother covering, and let me tell you why. The first is the halberd, okay? When I hit this thing with maximum spec, it barely, even with the bleed ticks, it barely adds up to 1,000 at all. This is a useless PvE weapon. Maybe it's useful in Zerg versus Zerg, though. I would rather have anything else on my team than a halberd. Spreading bleed that hits for 300 damage is easily healable, and it's just a garbage weapon. Carrion Collar, same deal. This thing barely hits for anything, and even with the bleed combined, it is not... It's just, the damage isn't there for PvE. For raids, yeah, that healing received minus 30% might be cool, might be good. I'd rather just kill the targets. Also useless. And then Realm Breaker. Here's the thing with Realm Breaker, okay? I can get the tooltip damage in the combat log to go over 1,000 when buffed, okay? But against a target dummy, it's very hard to calculate how much damage you're actually doing because this hurts their maximum and current health by 8%. Which, when that effect wears off, they actually take a little bit more damage. Like, if I hit the target dummy fully buffed, once it recovers its max HP back, it's down by about 2,500 HP, which is really good. But in PvE, it's, you know, most enemies, only the glowing ones have over 10k HP. So, you know, hitting the glowing ones for that amount, pretty darn good, but I'm not life-stealing that amount. I'm only life-stealing about 900 actual damage worth. So in PvE, Realm Breaker, not so worth it. In PvP, yeah, it might be cool, but, you know, you're only taking 20% of like 2,000 to 3,000 HP. So, again, it's not something I know how to calculate the damage of, so I'm just not going to bother with these three weapons. The Infernal Scythe, or Scythe, or however you pronounce it, okay, at maximum spec, here's the damage. The number on the left, 444 times 2, because this attack hits twice. So there's the first hit and the second hit. Now, the second hit of this weapon counts as an execute, alright? And what that means is that the second hit will deal for a lot more damage. As you can see here by the tooltip, you can see that it does almost 1,000 more damage, sort of. Except in reality, it doesn't. Testing against these dummies, the second hit only hit for 987 damage. And when buffed with our W5 spell, which is, again, the spinning axes up to 10, it only hits for 1,285. So the first hit will always hit for the normal amount, and then the second hit is the execute. Now, here is the reason why I'm not going to test this weapon at lower specs than max. The reason is that the Great Axe, when compared, deals 165 more damage at maximum spec than the Infernal Scythe. So, what that tells me is there is no reason to ever use this weapon at all, because the Great Axe does the same thing, a big circle AoE, and it does it better, more mana efficiently, and it allows you to be uninterruptible and you can't be knocked around or stunned while you're whirlwinding with the Great Axe. So, in a group dungeon soloing situation, I have no reason to ever touch this weapon, not one single bit. Therefore, there's no reason to test lower leveled specs for it. Alright, so the Bear Paws had the same problem as the Scythe. Absolute low garbage damage. Like, you're doing 828 with your E-spell, the Great Axe is doing over 2,000. And even when buffed, it barely scratches 1,000. Yes, I know that Bear Paws has a cooldown reset function when you hit a player, knocks it down to about 18 seconds, where the other Axe's abilities are about 20, and you can knock that down further. I know, I understand. However, I'm looking for PvE damage, okay? I don't PvP with axes. If I do, I have a Great Axe that I run into a blob and whirlwind them down. And they can't even stop me or move me or interrupt me or anything, okay? So, for one last test, okay, we're going to find some group dungeon mobs, and we are going to smash them up with our abilities and see just how much damage Realm Breaker is going to do to them compared to the Great Axe. Alright, so I did end up testing the Realm Breaker, and the way I did it was I put on a Realm Breaker, and then I attacked these Renowned Huntresses. These are Tier 5 static dungeon open world mobs right over here in, where's the Snapshaft Trough. I think that's how you pronounce that word, right outside Bridgewatch. So, these things have over 10,000 HP, and, well, Realm Breaker's weird because it deals max and current HP. I waited for the debuff to end, which, when you attack them without the debuff ending, here's where they're at. It actually knocks them down to 7676 HP instead, and if you could, I guess, kill them in that time frame. Maybe I can just run around for 30 seconds and hit them again. And But you get the idea, right? Like, if you get these mobs alone, I can actually fight them normally. Let's just do one normal fight with the Realm Breaker and kill both of them. Just to see, just to show how the fight would go, assuming that, you know, you had your cooldowns and stuff up, okay? So I'm going to eat a roast pork, and that's absolutely mandatory for these kinds of mobs. Remember, this is max spec. Most people are going to have max spec, and we're just gonna full on fight them, right? We got the full buff there. Boom! Hit them with the E. Put on our shield. Continue to stack the bleeds up. Continue to do auto attacks, and we'll take them out. Pretty simple stuff, and we'll see which weapon's easier. There's another stack of 2 renowned huntresses nearby, and yeah, you can see our HP. It's not so bad. We're going to use giant growth here, and that's going to let us tank some extra damage. I'm going to go ahead and use our axe spin here. Combine it with our armor. Hit him again with the E. I actually missed the one on the right. Did you see that? I think I missed the one on the right with my E, which kind of sucks. But hey, look, we can take him down. We can go ahead and get our mana back a little bit here with our shield. There we go. We took him down. Not the hardest fight ever, okay? That was with Realm Breaker. Now with Great Axe, which, if you've watched this entire video, you will have seen that so far Great Axe is the highest damage dealing weapon that we've been able to equip for this exact task, which is the whole point of me making and trying out and testing this video, is to see which is just straight up better at killing static dungeon, group dungeon mobs, okay? And there's our second little set of ladies here. We're just going to go ahead and open up on them. And there we go. You can see much easier. I can attack while moving and dodge attacks. I'm not locked into an animation. Very cool stuff. I'm going to go ahead and shield that. And yes, I do have way more practice. I actually missed my W a bit there, but that's okay. We've got our armor, keeping ourselves at full HP. Still taking lots of hits. Go ahead and grow big there. And there we go. We're about to do our second E. And we're hitting both targets. Now, she did dodge a bit, so we didn't fully hit her with that E. And if you're the thing with E on your Whirlwind, your Great Axe, is each consecutive hit increases the damage they take by 30. So if they dodge or step out of that zone, it resets, meaning you deal overall less damage. So in both of those instances, we missed one of the characters, but you can see I ended that fight pretty much full HP. The other fight, I nearly died. Now, there is one last thing we could technically do. We do hand axe, and through testing, the Moisac was the ideal item to use. And I don't know if I can find another pair of huntresses like that, but you know, we can always fight something else. We can fight one huntress, I guess. We'll fight one huntress. We'll go and pull her with the E. You know, just pull her. She's throwing axes. I'm throwing axes. We're all throwing axes here. We're all a big happy family. She needs to scoot up more though. That way we can start attacking. And you can see it's basically the same thing. I did miss my Q there, so she's going to reset those bleeds. I want full bleed stacks before I can even use my E. The Great Axe does not have that problem. The Great Axe, you don't have to stack your bleeds up to be more effective with it, okay? But you can see there, it's a nice little heal. It wasn't super big, but it was decent. Alright, and just fighting one of these, it's not too troubling. I can still use my Hellion Jacket, kill her faster, get that HP back up. I am having a little bit of mana issues because of the Moisac, but you don't have to use the Moisac. You can always use something else. We can use an Aegis. Aegis is also going to give us a mana issue. We use Facebreaker. Absolutely no downsides to Facebreaker whatsoever. And again, we just need to find, you know, a proper group to fight. We're not going to fight any of those. Those are all way too tough. And I'm on a horse, so I might not even make it out of here. Let's see. Double Axe and Giant, Earth Mommy, Wizard, Axe Ladies, Double Wizard, Axe Ladies. That looks like a fun fight. I don't know if I can do it, but we'll try. So again, we gotta stack up our bleeds to 3 before we can even toss our axe, because we want the most healing and the most damage possible. We also don't want to hit other mobs, you know, outside. I'm gonna go ahead and shield here and use our Hellion Jacket, and you can see that they're not in a line. I don't have these guys in a line. If I stood in between all 3, I could maybe make it work with a Whirlwind, but now I have to get them back in line. And some of them aren't at 3 bleed stacks, so I can't throw my axes yet on them. There we go. Now we have 3 stacks on each one. Throw the axes. And, you know, it's pretty easy. Our health is actually very high for, you know, 3 glowing targets. It's not the worst option to use. It's definitely doable. We also have a patrol incoming, which is going to make this a little hard to to navigate here. Now, this one on the top, she's going to lose her bleed stacks. I wasn't able to re-engage her in time. So that means that my throwing hatchet's not going to be ideal. Now against a single target, oh yeah, this will be pretty easy. I'm going to make sure that I get my W's fully stacked up before I start throwing those hatchets so I can maximize the damage. There we go, and that's going to heal us for 674. Not the best, not the worst. But you can see against one target, you're basically unstoppable, right? Because I just put on the shield and I can tank a hit so I can get more mana back. Make sure those bleeds never drop off the target. It's very easy for, you know, one-handed axe to solo these mobs, but it's not as brain dead or as easy as Great Axe. I think Great Axe is the king for soloing group content over all other weapons, and that's why I've been running these damage tests for both PvP and PvE usage. I know that Bear Paws holds the world record for clearing corrupted dungeons. That's because it's a movement skill and a damage skill in one. I think that can be beaten by someone if they truly cared or wanted to. So yeah, there you go. This is I'm Soul Benji. Thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out with me today. Hopefully you found this video informative. I have so much combat fame credits on my main character, on my YouTube character, not my main character, that I want to max out a whole weapon tree for a video, and I don't know what to max out, and I'm trying to figure out through these tests what I want to max out. But we can see that the data it's not worth it to, like, half these axes suck. Like, what am I ever going to do with a maxed halberd? What am I ever going to do with a maxed carrying collar? Nothing. Bear Paws? Ew, gross. Like, yeah, there's a dismount build with it, and that's it. I dismount them and then they run away, and it's just whatever, man. Like, I'm not feeling the axe tree. I don't think it's worth it to max out axes, even to buff the power of the Great Axe. Like, the Great Axe is great just at 100 spec. Go look at my video. 100 spec versus 840 spec. It's not a lot of damage. I'll even show you on the screen. Alright, so we can see here, Whirlwind, 2028 damage at max spec. And then at 100 spec, which is easy to get, so you lose like 250 damage. That's not a lot. Now, against a 10,000 HP target, a difference of 250 is 40. What that means is that at 100 spec versus maximum spec, every time you whirlwind, you need to whirlwind 40 times to pay for itself. That ain't worth it to me. That ain't freaking worth it. Anyway, guys, let me know what you thought. Let me know what you want me to test out next, or what kind of videos you want to see. Alright, thanks for hanging out with me. Make sure you're subscribed, because I have videos every single day as long as my health keeps up, okay? If I don't post videos for a few days, it's because my health went really bad. But regardless, if this helped you out, if you found this useful. Also, for those that don't know, the target dummies, they're on your personal island. Go to your personal island and then go right over here to the left side. They are completely free. You don't buy them from the market. They're not a decoration that you place down. They're just right here on the left side of any personal island. So if you don't have an island, maybe someone will give you access to an island and you could mess around on their target dummies, okay? Guys, if you want to leave a monetary donation, click the thanks button. If you want to become a channel member, click the join button. That one's $5 a month. It's like being a Twitch subscriber, except it's on YouTube. You get access to private personal videos. Check out the members only videos in the pinned comment section. If one of those interests you, become a channel member today. One of those videos is how to become a YouTuber, which is exactly the settings, programs, everything that I do to be a YouTuber, including, you know, blow edits and one takes whenever I have hiccups, like I just did. I know, it's not professional, it's whatever. But still, if you want to learn SEO, how to do tag title thumbnails so that your videos actually get views, I see all these Albion Online channels all the time. I see people with hundreds of videos on their channel and they get like 20 views. And I bet they're wondering, well, how do I get views? And I'll tell you, it's in search engine optimization, SEO. I teach it in a 40-minute long video, along with everything else on how I become a YouTuber. I think it's worth just paying the $5 and watching the video, okay? Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, make sure that you are subscribed so that you don't miss tomorrow's video. Take care.